it's okay for men to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you need to cry, you cry.
Right.
And yes. And number two is that men too do go through abuse, maybe emotional, financial, physical, or you name it. It is okay to seek for the appropriate help. Do not wait until it's too late.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fombad, and I spark the heart conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African.
Yeah. And then you are not screaming, you are not shouting.
Yeah.
I think what even made them believe was because they saw the blood on the back of my neck. And you know what they did? They were the ones who cleaned the blood while waiting because they were like, what do you need? I said, I need to go to the hospital. Oh. So they were the ones who called for an ambulance. So what I learned later, which I did not even know, was that if the police had come or whatever and they saw the blood and stuff, that she would have been arrested.
Yeah, she would have been arrested.
Yes, yes. So they were actually trying to protect her. The manager was another lady too. So they helped, they cleaned it, and they called an ambulance about 5, 10, 15 minutes later, an ambulance came there. They took my blood pressure. It was so high. I still have that paper. Goodness. It was so high. It was nearing, what do you call it, diastolic, systolic? The top number was really high.
Systolic and diastolic.
Yes. Yeah. So they asked me to sit as calm as I could. You know, they said as calm as a cucumber. I had to, because now I'm thinking of myself.
Yeah.
You know, if anything happens to me, you know, it is going to be me. So I just stayed as calm as possible. And so the ambulance called the police officer. The police officer came, gave me some paper. He was like, okay, you can press charges and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they gave me the papers to press charges, which I did not. And she does not even know that. The ambulance took me to the hospital and yeah, I was in the hospital the whole other day. I think by evening I was discharged. And from that point of discharge, I went straight to the court that same night to just get a protective order against her, because it was everything going on. People do not understand. It's different when abuse is different in different ways. When you think about it, it wasn't so much the pain, but we start thinking that, what does this person think about me?
Yeah.
Like that they could disrespect you to that level. And I'm there, all kinds of thoughts were going through my mind. Divorce was not the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. When I say all kinds of, I mean all kinds of emotions. I did not even know what to do. Seriously, I did not even know what to do.
Oh
and
goodness.
Because if divorce was the very first thing, immediately I got a protective order, I would have gone straight to, I would have just got an attorney straight, and then, within a couple of days, they get how do you say it in my state? You get a limited divorce and things like that. But that came like, not even within the first year, was probably after like 2 years or so that some other processes got in. I just didn't know what was going on. I was just trying to figure out things. Wow. So wherever she went, by the time she came back, I was not home. I was just avoiding the situation. So she sent me a text message that, sorry that I hit you.
What?
And she told me, yes, sorry that I hit you. And then she told me where she was going. she was going to one of my friends' place. And but there's so much going on in between. But by the time I saw my children, the first one had a very big red mark on his cheek. In that anger, she spanked him in. I don't know what I'm saying that both kids were less than 4 years old. Whatever happened in that car for that child who is looking up to as an adult, she got him well spanked. I don't know how many spanks. So by the time I saw my son, and we're like, what's going on? And then she started narrating, trying in his own way that he could, what mommy did to him and things like that. So you start thinking about that. I'm saying this. You start thinking, okay, so what did that child do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, where did that kind of rage come from? If this is someone who had told me repeatedly over the years in a relationship that hurt people, hurt others. So she had not got out whatever was going on within her the right way. So everybody around her becomes a target because like you already know, sometimes domestic violence happens because sometimes someone can just perceive your point of view as something that is threatening to them, and they can just attack you, not knowing that they are the ones who are wrong.
Yeah.
Before you start talking about things that are obvious abuse. So I think she was in a place, where she was actually out of touch with reality. I cannot prove it. I'm not the expert, so let me just limit myself with this because it was very evident that whatever traumas she had gone through over time, it was really affecting her. It doesn't show. She's a very smart person. There's a lot of things that she does well, so it kind of masks other things, and some things don't really show. Some things don't really show until you are in a relationship. So it did not affect her job. She did well. It was only when she gets into a relationship with a man, then those things about whoever did what to her, all of those things start coming again. And unfortunately, as it would be, my son and myself seem to be like the number one sufferers, of her anger, of her rage, and things like that. It was a very long journey, to say the least. Emotionally, in my thoughts, in my emotions, I had to think through my mental stability. Even after, when I got a protective order, and things like that. When she would come to pick up the kids, I will be very careful. In fact, there was a point where I will actually send another adult, to give the kids to her. There was a day, whatever happened, I think it was whatever happened to a car outside of the house. I locked all the windows and I had to call one of my friends that she's outside. I hope she's not trying to do something violent.
Yeah.
So those are the effects that people don't really see.
Yeah.
That's a trauma. Because how do you show it? It's not something that is physical. It's not something that happens every moment. Yeah. But you just realize that suddenly you're in a different space, in a space of fear, but you want to man up and things like that. How do you tell the next person? Because every person who knew it after that, male, female, our close friends, everyone was only trying to get me to fix it. She's gone and cried and manipulated almost everyone around, and then now all eyes are on me. And then I'm like, wait a minute. If A abandons B, A goes about with their life for 1, 2, 3, 4, how many other months or years, and then B takes some decisions. How come you see Camber to B to be accusing B? A choose their life independent of B, even though A had promised to be together with B. So those were the things, and I just saw another side of life when they talk of experience. Yeah. If you cannot really experience something, never you say that I understand what you're going through. No, you don't.
Right.
And you might have experienced the same thing, but it's a different, how do you say it? But it's a different experience,
everybody's experience is relative.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it was a journey. It was a journey.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically a lot of things you said are very new to me, because I know all through these years that I've known you. Yeah. I mean, we always talk. You're always so jovial. Like, you have never, ever given any sign of distress, any sign of you being in such a situation and stuff like that. And I mean, our friendship also has basically always been on, it hasn't been deep enough from my judgment, from what you've been through, because if it was deep enough, I should have known these things. And I feel like I probably wasn't checking on you as much. And also, I mean, I have a podcast, I ask questions, but when it comes to being nosy, especially about people's private life, I really don't like being nosy. If you want to talk to me about something, you talk to me about it, but I would never be the person to ask or try to be nosy to know what people are doing in their private lives. I mean, this also happens even to the closest of friends that I have. Like, I really don't try to ask too many questions, because sometimes asking questions could just trigger people or could maybe indirectly put pressure on people and stuff like that. So I tend to be very, very careful. But this is definitely a lesson on my part, because sometimes when we close out on personal things like that, then it actually isolates the friend, and on the other hand, I mean, it's fair enough that you don't want to be too nosy into people's private lives unless they are comfortable talking to you about. But I definitely have learned the lesson to always check on your friends. I mean, sometimes if you have that conviction that, hey, I need to check on this person, because every time when I just ask how are the wife and kids, you're like, oh yeah, they're good, that's fine. And we keep it moving, but I never really got into, hey, are you okay? Or, everything good and stuff like that. I mean, you didn't even show any signs of that to me. So I didn't really have a reason, you know what I mean? But I am so sorry that you actually went through all of this. There were so many things that you said, which I totally agree on. And there were a few things that I really wanted to highlight, especially when you're talking about the beautiful buildings, with crumbling foundations, because when you got married, I cannot forget when I saw the pictures and everything, I was so happy, I mean, I didn't even know her, but I trusted you enough to pick the best wife, right? You probably trusted yourself as well,
Oh, yeah.
So I was just so happy for you. You had your children. I mean, I was so happy, and, I was just like, thinking about the same thing that we see all these other relationships, especially though, I mean, you weren't like showing off. You were probably sharing those pictures to share with your friends and family, of course, but there are some people that specifically on social media, they always want to prove a point, that they're happy, and they want to be couple goals and stuff like that. And I just wanted to let the listeners know that there are actually so many beautiful buildings with crumbling foundations on social media, and people choose to show you just exactly what they want you to know. But when you look at these beautiful couples on the outside or beautiful buildings, they are literally crumbling. Their foundations are crumbling on the back end. So we have to be very careful about the couples that we refer to as goals, because what you see on the outside is not exactly what there is on the inside. And so we should spend more time working on ourselves to be the best person or best partner we can be for our significant others or for our friends and stuff like that. So this is definitely a life lesson. And, all of these things you're telling me, I mean, I know people are different in relationships than in friendships and stuff, but I just can't, I still cannot bring myself to see you going through this. I don't think I've ever seen you in an argument before. You know what I mean? And I could probably say that on behalf of a lot of your friends. I don't think you're always a peacemaker. If anything, you're always a peacemaker. So I don't even see you in an argument, talk less of a violent argument or an abusive argument. It's, everything you have told me, I probably will need like some time, a very long time to sit back and like put two and two together, because I just cannot see someone like you in an argument. I mean, we're not perfect. We have emotions. At the end of the day, we're humans, but it's something that I'll need some time, to really look into, to really understand why and how that happened, because I probably will go back and re-listen to this episode, because these are definitely things that I'm hearing for the first time, and to say the least, I am utterly disheartened and shocked, and I'm definitely understating, but talking about the kids, one of the questions I actually had was, with kids involved and stuff, I thought maybe things changed, but it seems like things did not change. Things actually got worse, so to really to compromise those kids' innocence, that's something that really broke my heart, I think of my little nieces and nephews. My niece is 4 years old. She knows so much, and she is a talkative. She talks so much, like it's unbelievable. So to know how much she knows and to expose her to that kind of environment, I can definitely see that impacting her in a very negative way, and to see that this woman almost killed you, in front of the children, like I just don't understand. I just do not understand. And again, if let's just say all things being equal and everything, if you retaliated, it's not like you couldn't retaliate. It's not like it's not like you couldn't actually get her beaten. But number one, that's just not who you are. And this is a very powerful example of not letting people change who you are, because that was a perfect opportunity for you to hit her back, but you chose not to because that's not who you are. And on the second part, it's like, of course, the legal system, I just want to let especially the African people know, like the legal system most times actually in America, for example, actually favors a woman more than the man. Tends to favor the woman more than the man. So if, regardless of how much she laid hands on you, if you literally just spanked her and she screamed, if the cops came, they most likely would have taken you to jail instead of her, So that was I believe that was a primary reason as well, in addition to the fact that that's not who you are. I believe that you also did not want to implicate yourself, and you were also protecting your children, which is a very commendable thing to do. I hope that every man listening to this episode or listening to you as a whole, because we're going to have more than one episode, but I hope that every man can really appreciate the power of that moment, even though your life was at stake, even though your life was in risk. But it takes a strong man. It takes a real man to not react. It takes a real man to handle it the way you did. And I just want to commend you for that. Now, with everything going on, when you were going through the whole ordeal, I know, especially with kids involved, it must have been very difficult to make certain rational decisions, or at least certain quick decisions, like in terms of divorce. The right thing you did was to file that restraining order or I think it's a restraining order, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. But now, in terms of like the divorce and stuff, like how did you, how did you come about, just saying that, what, right now I just care about myself, whatever happens to the kids, we'll figure it out, but I need to get out of this relationship as soon as possible.
Yeah. So like you say, sometimes it's like watching this question. Sometimes it reminds you of like watching a movie. It takes 30 seconds for someone to fly from Los Angeles to maybe to Heathrow Airport. But that's, we're talking about a couple of hours, and so like everything we're talking is like a compression, because every step was a process, and nothing I did not premeditate. I did not even imagine, even when everything was going on. First of all, I come from a background from my mom's side, my dad's side, there's no history of divorce. So you can just imagine how difficult the process was. Not even because of, in addition to that, I'm not a proponent of divorce. Yes, I'm divorced. I have an ex-wife. So it is not like, I'm like, oh, you out there, this thing that happens. No. I tried.
Yeah.
Several intervention steps, even the one that I thought I was going to die when the adultery happened. Did I see red signs even before marriage? Oh yes, I did. But I switched that. I switched it off and things like that. So, but with everything I tried to get some people involved that I thought she could listen to, but everything turned against me, just to say the least.
Yeah.
But just coming back to this, like it's interesting. You made a comment that, she almost killed me. She herself made that comment when she was talking to someone. Those things all got back to me. She was like, she doesn't know what came upon her, that if she had a weapon in her hands, she would have even killed me. So she was actually really acknowledging, how much rage, was in her. So, but with the kids involved, I will go ahead of myself a little bit. Like I mentioned, at the time, both kids were less than 4. But when my son was 6 years old, there was a day he was like, "Daddy, I know what happened before you. I know why you and Mom no longer live together because I know what happened. So you would think, this was this child was too young. That's even what the legal system was saying. Oh, these children are too young. They're going to forget everything. I think that is, they just say stuff. You cannot really put your children or your family in the hands of a third party, who doesn't have the same goals or visions. They just say stuff to get the process going and things like that. I don't think the psychologists and all of those things, we agree with that point of view, because my son mentioned when he was 6, nothing. I mean, from the time it happened, he never even said something indirectly. And then that day, there was nothing related to the conversation. I don't sit with him and start talking about his mom, good, bad, or ugly. No, I focus on our children. So it just gives you an idea of how this can affect children sometimes. I know you asked about the legal system, but I was just talking about the children part.
And not necessarily even the legal system, because we're going to talk about that in the divorce, but just more about like everything that led you to make that final decision of like, you know what, I just want to file for the divorce.
Oh, thank you for bringing me back on track. Again, like everything was a process. Like when I got the protective order, I mean, it was first temporary for, I believe, 2 weeks. Then it was extended to a year. That's the max they give it. That's legal. Literally, they're telling you that we're giving you time to do whatever you want to do and stuff like that. So, I mean, I was giving custody to the kids, but right then the judge was like, so what do I have to say? I told the judge, I'm not trying to keep them away from their mom. She didn't have any say at that point because it was obvious, it was evident what had happened.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all of these things, but I had not even filed for divorce. This was when the final protective order was being given. And then the judge was like, don't do that again. Okay. She was like, yes, and whatever. And because I said, I'm not trying to keep the kids away from their mom. So the judge was like, okay, we're going to send you to so and so to help to arrange, custody arrangements, because the kids were given to me, but how should we seeing them? From that point on, I'm going ahead of myself a little bit, but from that point on, that was it. I've forgotten how the legal system called the person, but it's some kind of case worker in court. But from that point on, she was really trying to turn every paperwork in favor of my then estranged wife, because we're just separated then. So but just coming back, all of this was a process, because I was thinking, like, what led me to the divorce. What I can tell you is that when that incident happened, that day, in my mind, I was like, I don't know how I can live with this person again in the same house. I might sleep and not wake up.
Yeah.
What I did not mention is that there were a couple of times that I fled the house and I slept in the car just to avoid her rage. That happened a couple of times, even before that, the stroke that broke the camel's back. So I know what I was telling myself was that I don't see how I can live with this person, but I don't know what was going to go on next. So, but we went for the protective order. Was given first of all 2 weeks temporary, I think, and then it was extended to a year, and I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. All I knew, like I'm saying to you now, it's an easy question, but all I knew was that I don't know how I can live with this person. I wasn't even thinking about the divorce process. So, but as the months went by during this whole separation period, I noticed even more things because the kids spent more time with me. So the time that she had to spend with them, she chose abandoning them even more.
Wow.
And then as time went, yes, like she would not come and take them when I spent time with them. I think she was trying to use the children to punish me. So, which was a big mistake, because it just gave me more time to really spend with them and build a very, very solid relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
So, but as the months went by, she started looking for loopholes, if you know what I mean. That's how vicious she was. She I mean, not that it worked, but you would have thought that would have been the point for me to actually just rush and file.
Yeah.
Yes. So after 1 year of separation, the protective order had expired. She came to pick up the children because now there was no order binding them. She took the children. She had to bring them back on a Sunday. And I waited, she didn't bring them back. And I was like, when are you getting here? And then she was like, the protective order is now expired.
What?
So, yeah, so she kept the children away from me. I didn't see them for 3 weeks. Whoa. And I tried to get the police involved. I tried to get, the legal system involved. And at that point, what they told me was that, well, let me go back to my own part. If I had already filed for divorce before the expiration, I would have saved myself that headache.
Yeah.
Because when the police came, all they could do was there's a word they use for it. They just called to make sure that the children were with her. I did not have any document to show that they had to be with me legally. But so long as that was the other legal guardian, their mom, they cannot just go and just take the children from her and bring to me, even though she didn't bring the children back to me. So I had to just wait it out until they were going to school, because everything about it, from doctor's visits, name it, to whatever, extracurricular activities, their school, I was doing all of that. So when she withdrew them, she could not bring them back to school because she was trying to keep them away from me. And then she was trying to use them now as a bait. She started sending me emails about us getting together. It was just drama.
Oh, my goodness.
Trust me. Oh, no, it was just drama. This is somebody who... Anyway, so that was the point where it finally hit me, which I would say like a little bit too late, because I had seen enough before the marriage. Yeah. I had seen a whole lot more during the marriage, and then we are separated. And then I was too hesitant, and I knew where that hesitancy came from. It's just the fact that how do I introduce divorce in a family lineage? If I look on my mother's side, the whole line, my father's side, the whole line, there's no evidence of. So all of that was really, really playing in my mind a whole lot. But I just knew I could not live with her again.
Right.
So I was separated from the children for 3 weeks, and then how did I even get them back? She finally changed their school. As if the trauma wasn't enough already. So much instability within a short period of time in the children's life. When she put them in the other school and I learned of their address, I just went there and picked them up. No one can come and take them from me because I'm their legal, I'm their dad, I'm the biological dad. Yeah. So long story short, from that point on, that was when it finally dawned on me that, you know what, we are done. Because the cycle was toxic. Vicious. When I say vicious, I mean vicious. She brought every line from the book, every trick of the book. She got an attorney and all kinds of, because from every evidence with what she had done to the child and what she had done to me, those kids had to stay with me full custody, even though that's not the biggest part of the whole this thing. But I'm saying that it was a torturous, journey, very adversarial journey, to go through the whole divorce process. But from that point where she took the kids and never brought them back, it was clear. That was when I finally concluded that if this lady has an opportunity, to just drop something. You know how you do something to someone and then something happens to them elsewhere, so that you don't take the responsibility for it. So it was that bad. It was that terrible. But I think I made the decision. I'm just being honest. Yeah. I think I made that decision a little bit too late, because even after that separation, I think I would have, probably just filed, and really it would have brought even more stability in the lives of the children. And things like that. So, but it was really that point, 1 year after the separation, I did not file for any divorce. When she withheld the children from me, that was actually when I started taking some steps, towards filing for a divorce.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for, really, really talking about this. I can't stop thanking you, because it's just, hearing this feels so surreal. If anybody knows you, and they hear this story, it's just like, oh my goodness, this is definitely not Femi. This is not who I know,
I'm telling you.
And sometimes there's some people that when they go through something, the first question is them well enough to know that they probably instigated something, and you'll be like, what did you do, or something like that, which is also not the best question to ask,
Yeah.
But in this situation, it's like the first thing that comes up to mind is like, why? Like, why would you go through, like, why would God even let you to go through this kind of thing? Or why would you even go through this kind of thing, you know? But hey, those are all questions that we may never have answers to. Now, let me take you like maybe 1 or 2 steps back. I mean, we've spoken about so much. We've spoken about the emotional abuse. Well, we're still going to touch on that. We've spoken about the physical abuse. We've spoken about the verbal abuse. Now, tell us about the adultery.
It's like, do you mean the adultery during courtship, long distance relationship, or the one during the relationship?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was smelling all about the place, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know where to begin, but I know where to begin. So because there were a lot of red flags even during the long distance courtship, you know, and I started wondering, if people leave a previous relationship, don't you have a proper closure to move on? Otherwise, you move on, but you not really move forward. Oh, let me say, maybe the other way around. You move forward with your life, but you have not really moved on mentally. That person is still stuck in your mind. So I found myself in this place. I don't know, again, like I've said so many times, what I was thinking. Because it looks like there was just it looks like there were so many of us. If you know what I mean. She was in the
Oh my goodness, it's so funny to hear that. It's not a funny situation, but the way you said it.
But it looks like I was the only suitor. I was the only one talking about marriage. Yes. But this person from A, the previous person from B, from C, from D, and I was like, wow, this lady has capacity. How many men can you handle at once? And sometimes you this is still long distance, but we could already smell all of that, because sometimes you lie so much that you contradict yourself. Right. So there was already a lot. But now when she moved here, we got married, we started living together and stuff like that, And then she started going to school somewhere, and I will just skip to. I'm sorry, but I will just skip to one or two of them. Because the school she started going. I mean, it was just messy. It's if you are not able to introduce someone to your husband or to your wife because there's something that you're hiding that is more precious with them than with your spouse, than with your husband or wife, why put yourself through that, or why put them through that? Unless your conscience is so dead that you don't even feel the guilt of the process. So it was just that. I mean, you this guy is hugging your wife from behind, and then you see them red-handed or whatever the situation is. She cannot even introduce you as, this is my husband. What? Oh yeah. So those kind of things. I don't know how I was coping through those things, but all I could tell you is that I was, the way it affected me, like they say that naturally men are hunters. And that's kind of old. It doesn't really match in our postmodern time in the way that it was meant to say. Yeah. But I think it kind of drew me in a little bit, like there's something that a woman you love brings into your life, and it's some level of motivation. I think it kind of brought me low a little bit, because it's almost like it's not enough. Because I was thinking, after all of them, before the marriage and all the trouble went through because of these guys, it is still not enough. And then, so that's school number one. School number two, those things where you save people's phone numbers, and then there's this one person, the content of the message is different. Yeah, it's very suspicious, and then you have to lie about it. You have to play some games. It is so all of those kind of things were going on until then she got into this job. Someone helped her. This person is when I just came to this country, it's one of the people that I lived with. So that woman helped my then wife with a job. And then one of the guys there started messing. This is not the first person, by the way. One of the guys that started messing with my then wife. And of course, I did not know immediately, but I knew, because this guy, that was what he did to him. Anything that falls in his net is fish. Because a lady who had hired my then wife told me that, she should be, that there's so and so on staff, that your wife should be very careful with this person. And then she was like, no, but I know your wife. I know she's a very godly woman. In my mind, I just carried my hand on my head. I was like, oh, it's just a matter of time.
Right.
So, yeah, I think she was really drawn to those, whether you call them players or whatever you call them, Anyways, so that one was really deep. I mean that I'm coming to the house. My wife is leaving almost immediately. I've been to work since morning, coming because then she wasn't working. As I'm coming, she's leaving. And then she's just gone for like 4 hours. She's with the guy.
Oh my goodness.
and then where they were working, too many details, but where they were working, the person that this guy started confiding in about his relationship with my own wife, what that guy did not know is that person he was confiding was my very, very, very good friend. He just didn't know us like that. And they all worked at the same place. So when my friend didn't tell me, when the guy was confiding in him, he didn't tell me immediately. It took me, this particular relationship, there were just suspicions all over the air. They hid it very well. It took me a whole full year to figure out what was going on. Because again, remember, life happens. No one sits and then you're like, oh, let me check this. We're not FBI in relationships. No. So things happen. So life is flowing. You just trust that the other person is doing what they're supposed to do. Blah blah blah. Anyways, and then this incident finally happens, and then my sister, I will not forget this day that we left this occasion and we're driving, because I was like, this is too much. Why am I so not at peace? Why am I so restless? Something is not right. Instincts. They said that women have that intuition,
the intuition
more. Yes, but something was, and I just asked her, even though we had other situations before, but I mean, she, anyways, and then I was like, have you ever cheated on me? I mean, anyways, long story short, when this story came out about this guy at the job where she was working, there was already suspicions around, by the way. As soon as she leaves, some days she will leave the house super early to go pick up the guy and then go drop him back and things like that. She would turn off her phone. It's just routine that sometimes a couple, sometimes the routine that couples have. You do not really plan to. Maybe you plan to. Maybe let me just say, for example, if your husband is just a habit for the past 2 years that each time you're leaving work or you're going to work or maybe during a break time, something, you just call him or you text him, and then suddenly, suddenly, there's no explanation. Then one party just stops 100%, and their phone is off. It's like, wait, I waited for your call. I called your job, you didn't pick up. And then she was like, she was there. They're like, no, this is a 30-minute. This is normally takes you maybe 20, 30 minutes, but you are home like 4 times later than that time. I was just worried about you. I called your job, and then the person said they were there. I called your cell phone. They said their cell phone was dead. And then you said that their cell phone was almost fully charged, because they're trying to hide stuff. And it's been a pattern, not just an isolated incident. It's been a pattern before relationship. Remember I mentioned a while ago that there were times that even during the long distance courtship, she would just disappear for like a whole weekend and then just appear. And then she would boldly say to me, is it everywhere I go that I must tell you? And then I'm confused with this kind of things. So when I finally had first-hand evidence, my very good friend, I called the guy. I asked him to come home. Man, I was sobbing. I was like, I called the guy's name at the job where my good friend was working. And then my friend just told me, he said, to be honest, that he knew, but that each time he saw my then wife and I together, he thought that maybe we'd trash everything. So he did not want to get involved. I understood his point. Nobody wants to be that. It's because of you that A and B are no longer together.
Yeah.
So now when I told my friend, and then since he now knew that I knew, he opened up a whole other chapter of the relationship. It was that was not the only situation, because remember earlier on in our relationship, this was like years before that time, that she told me that she is the one binding the relationship, the one holding our relationship, our marriage, because there are things that if she says the marriage should be over, of course, because of based on, they say by their records, based on the records she had kept, I knew there's nothing else apart of that. It's another man. Financially, I mean, you cannot really do certain things. It is a limited range of things you can do with finances that can go unanswered. But in this context, because it's always been about those situations. This is not suspicion. This is not jealousy. This is not control. This is not how do you call it? It's none of those things. This is as they will say, prima facie evidence. These are first-hand things. It is more what I saw, more what came from our own lips than it is really the one that came from third parties is very minute compared to what came from our own lips. But what I felt more was, I thought about it. I said, how many decades have I waited? And then I'm in a marriage, not just a casual relationship. Why am I so lonely? Why am I so empty? Why am I? This scripture that a lot of people quote, that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. I'm like, so wait a minute, where's the good thing here again?
Where's my favor?
And where's my favor? Yes. Why am I so alone? It was just something. It was too much. It was that. It was another. So what she did was, because one of these relationships, she was pregnant for our first child, and she was messing around with this guy. And then even after while pregnant? Yes. Whoa. Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Oh. So she was messing around with this guy. So even after she gave birth, she still I'm sure we all know this. When you tell somebody you need to cut off from A, and then tomorrow they are still in touch with A, it's deeper than what you think. What you're saying is just reaction. The foundation is deep. When people get entangled emotionally, it doesn't matter if that person is an assassin, or is that how you say it? It doesn't matter if that person is a murderer or whatever. The emotions can go really deep. She was already in her heart was fast, and she was finding it really hard to disentangle. Yeah. So and things like that. So, but this is because now she was pregnant, and I mean now she had given birth. They could not meet at work again because she was out for a couple of weeks. So guess what she was doing? When I come to the room, you know what she would do? She would, with our young child, she would put the child where I would normally sleep. I mean, she would do those things just to get me out of the room. And this came from her own lips later. I'm like, how do you spite me so much? And then later on you're telling me. For me, that was another level. That was, for me, I might be wrong, and I'm not an expert of that. For me, that was very narcissistic. But she did that, but that was her way to keep me away from her, so that she can have a free text time or whatever time with the guy, because I have to go to work tomorrow. If the child is here and I cannot really have a sound sleep, then I may just go to the next room and sleep for a couple of hours. So it went on, but I did not really notice it. Even though I picked some things, because it's hard to be in love with two people at the same time. I don't know how Solomon did it. So I was on, the player outside was the one, he had nothing to lose, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was on who was craving for intimacy. So I was one who was draining, who was being isolated, and things like that. So I mean, the adultery, it's a part of the facts or the act itself. It can really drain a man. Yeah. It can really drain a man psychologically, emotionally. I've heard a lot of stories here how maybe a man has done this or that to his wife because he caught them in the act, and things that, the man ended up in prison. I can understand, to be honest with you, why they did that. I mean, I don't condone with it. I don't condone with it, but you can see how you are pushed to a spot or to a place where you just don't even know what else to do. I don't know if a man can win an argument with a woman in this. Yeah, I went against my word, whether it's with a counselor or something. You just have to trust that. I know some men too can be very manipulative and very cunning and things like that. So let's just balance that.
It goes both ways, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So it goes both ways. So in this context, I felt helpless. I felt empty. I felt very low. And I asked myself several times why she decided to be in the relationship, because so many times over the years in the relationship, I was like, no one is forcing you to be here. I am here. But if you don't want to be here, I cannot make you. Why is it that the least thing you're only talking of a divorce or this or that, yet you are looking for, you would think that is because she really wants to be with someone. No, because this month she's jumping with this person. 6 months later, it is someone else. So that alone spoke. I don't think she was proud of that. So that alone spoke volumes, in and of themselves. Yeah. It made the home very unstable. How do you agree together? How do you get, I hope this is a PG word, but how do you get intimate with your wife with your whole mind, knowing that someone else who is helping themselves? Yeah. So all of those things, they were very torturous, torturous. In a way that is almost inexplicable.
Yeah, it's so sad. I would say it's rather sad that, we women, the common narrative is that, men are players. Women are the ones who are always trying to stick it up for the man in the relationship. Yeah. Women are always compromising. I said the last time that, our community, it's always been the norm for women to the man, children, and the family ahead of them to the point that they lose themselves. But that does not exclude the fact that men too don't go through that. Because men actually do go through that. And it's always the good ones, right? Like, the good men, who have all the attributes in the Bible, they will do anything for their family. But sometimes, they end up in bad situations, which are definitely not, or obviously not of their making, So it's rather unfortunate and sad that this had to happen. And people, especially my African peers and my African folks listening to this, I honestly and truly do not want you to mistake this for weakness. This is not weakness. This is actually the highest form of strength and power, by being this vulnerable and really seeing, because I don't think you're the first person who has been through that, and you probably would not be the last, but this is definitely the reality that most or some men go through behind the scenes, but they're just not bold enough to step up and talk about it. And that's why I'm super excited about this episode. And I'm so glad that you came with it as an open book, like told me from the get-go, and you are being as explicit as possible, which I think is very important, and I hope that you start a trend for other men to step up and also speak their truth and speak their story, so that we can actually get both sides to the story of the reality of what happened in our African community. Now, as a man, throughout this entire ordeal, how did you feel? Like, how were your emotions? Like, how was the reaction from the community? And I know that sometimes, especially, I know you're a Christian. You're a very good Christian. And sometimes, I don't know, I kind of have a feeling that we find ourselves in trouble sometimes, especially in terms of things in life, like marriage. We find ourselves in trouble, or we find ourselves acting too late because of our Christian values. It's like we hold on so much more to those Christian values that, again, we get blindsided by the reality of things, and it probably sometimes ends up being very detrimental than we had expected. Like, I mean, God made marriage, right? He who finds a wife finds a good thing. So it's like your wife is treating you like trash, but you find your entire Christian life. You spend your entire Christian life looking for that good thing that God promised you. You know what I mean? So I feel like this discussion will be like for a different time, but it's sometimes hard as a Christian to separate or to reconcile being a Christian and also knowing when to be a rational human. I mean, a Christian should be a rational human, obviously, but sometimes we get entangled between the Christian beliefs and what's should be done maybe legally or, you know, in a different aspect. So I just want to know how, as a Christian man, a confident Christian man going through all of this entire ordeal.
Yes.
And how did you feel? How did you feel about yourself? How did you feel about the situation? How did you feel about the community's reactions from family, friends, and even the church? Just how did you feel?
Yes. Thank you so much. So someone said that the problem is not marriage because it's God who created marriage. Right. So the problem, and you know how the Bible says in the Genesis, and when whatever God created, he saw that it was good. So the problem is not marriage, but it is the people in the marriage. That is where it comes from. And, you know, so when we talk about like the whole journey, right, I think that sometimes it's our interpretation or misinterpretation of the scripture. Yeah. Because let's not forget that same God, we like to talk about his mercy, his grace, but the Bible says that he is a God of justice. So sometimes when there's a time and a place for that, we cannot. That is part of God's nature. If we deny that, then he ceases to be God. If we think we're joking, you know, Jesus was a perfect example of his father. Look at, he was not happy with whatever was going in the temple, and the guy took out a whip and got the behinds of those people because he didn't like what was going on. So where was the mercy there? You know what I mean? They thought it was just one nice softy. No, he balanced things up. When he had to rebuke, he rebuked. And I think that even in our situation, like the situation that I went through, you know, the Bible has the right kind of prescriptions for everything, but sometimes it's our interpretation. Let me just go to my case, for example. I felt like there was a time that I had to apply justice. Justice is not revenge. I thought there was a time that I had to apply justice. I would have got out of certain situations quicker and sooner, but I did not. Please hear me out. I am not a divorce advocate. I'm a firm believer in healthy relationships, in marriage and stuff like that. And that is the reason why I also made certain mistakes, because I was indecisive and time was going by, you know, and then advantage was taken of me when it came to the legal system. There was a period where I had to act justly. The power I had during that period was a protective order. At that time, she had no say, literally none. Whatever I said would have gone through. That period passed by, the 1 year went through, I did not take any action. And so she took advantage of that. Even the Bible gives us legal grounds for divorce. Either direct. It does not mean that the Bible condones divorce. One of them is adultery. Another one is abandonment. And then there may be some gray areas which the Bible does not talk about directly, like when it comes to, what do you call it now? Like in case of domestic violence and abuse. You can't just leave someone there and then they die. And I listened to the last podcast, and this lady talked about what happened with her parents. I bless God for them. That's awesome. That's their journey. That's their story. So, but in this situation, like we're talking about, there are situations where the Bible gives room for those. And along the way, like you mentioned, I like the quote that you put at the end of your email. It says that, remember, if you're headed in the wrong direction, God allows U-turns. The Allison quotes you had.
Thank you.
Yes. So, but it has, God allows U-turns. But he does not take our legs and U-turns it for us. We have to make those steps. And so where I failed to take those steps, advantage was taken up. Is it because God just wanted me to just be and just suffer and things like that? No. So I think that the Bible kind of balances things up. because if we say we are Christians, it may be someone saying that I'm a nurse, but they don't know the basic things. They don't even know how to to apply first aid and things like that. The problem is them. It's not the creator of those procedures, when someone is going through a situation. And so those are all some of the things. It's different when someone just wakes up and say, oh, okay, I'm tired of you. I don't want to be with you anymore. And things like that. I don't know if that makes any little sense at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Now going to how you felt as a man throughout the entire experience, from just the roller coaster of the whole relationship to the marriage, and how your community, your circle, how they reacted towards everything, how your family reacted, how your friends reacted, even how the church reacted to everything. What was your perspective on that? Basically, what was your experience personally on everything with regards to everything, and then your perspective on how the community reacted and what you would have loved for them to do?
This is loaded. Like I keep saying, everything was a journey. It was not like a project that you just got it and then it was done. Everything was unprecedented. I just didn't know what was going on. So I actually had to buy a book on spiritual abuse to just check my own spiritual values. If the church where I was going, if I was voluntarily allowed myself to be controlled. So there is religion and there's Christianity. So I was just trying to find answers for myself. Why is this person trying to pressure me back into this abusive relationship? What is their point? So are they listening to me? There were situations where, one of the pastors was saying that he feels disrespected, that he's calling me and I'm not picking up my phone. And then I was like, since when did domestic abuse become about his respect? And I just felt like he did not even understand what was going on. So take note, goodness. I'm talking about my close people, a closely knit community that we had built for years. We've done a lot of good things together. And then after I got married, it started falling down one after another. I noticed something. Anytime, for the most part, if a third party got involved to help, before I knew it, I was on the defensive side. It looks like it just didn't matter what I said. So I started. It was a very rude awakening. I'm talking about my friends. Oh. I'm talking about my church. The church I was going to at that time. I'm talking about the children. One was at a daycare and the other was in an elementary school. I'm talking about those places. In the daycare, at some point when the legal process was going on, there was enough. There were things that they said to me that would have worked against their mom. But all of the ladies there, because 99% of them were ladies, they all withheld the information. The same thing happened at the school where my son was. So and then at some point I also went to court just to get advice. And the lady was already warning me that be careful. Watch. So I did not. It was so hard to see someone who came alongside with me, as if the abuse wasn't enough. I felt a lot of isolation. I felt like I was being isolated, and I felt like, people came on her side to just kind of support her. I mean, I like this, like they say, even when men cry, they cry differently than when women do. So I guess I didn't shed enough tears. So it was just a lot of things. It gave me an eye into the society. We can preach all the gospel we want. We can say whatever we want. But when push comes to shove, it begins to reveal. It's like an onion that you are removing the layer one at a time. You begin to see the real substance inside. Yeah. And what I can tell you is that it was harder. Even though at that time, because it was like a 2-year period where I had the kids primarily, but I would tell you that it almost felt harder for me. I'm telling you, is it insults? Is it threatening voice messages? I'm talking people that were worked together. People that I've known for like 2 decades from Africa and back and here. Even some of them, they'll actually try to send me emails and stuff, to like, you guys should get back together and stuff like that. And when they realized that I was not succumbing, they turned against me. In fact, at least one of them that I knew so well before I got married, one of them actually was one who actually testified against me in court. So that's how terrible it was on every front. And to my own pain, I just had to abandon a whole community that we had been together for at least 7 to 10 years, here in my state. And just because it was almost like just starting life all over again. It is different when you're 5. It is different when you're 15. Imagine what military kids go through to build the same friendship for a long period of time, because maybe this year they are deployed in next year. Yes. So imagine myself as an adult. For the most part, there are exceptions, of course, but for the most part, as we grow older, our circle of friends kind of reduces to a more qualitative one. Now, so just think about it. These people that you trusted, are the very people now who are being weaponized against you. So you have to start back again from afresh. And so that is how it felt, especially because the kids were with me. I'm telling you that some people who had spoken some things in confidence that they knew when some things came out, they they came out with all kinds of weapons. The only thing was that they could not get me. I moved from one county to another county to just stay away from the noise. So it was, and what really gave me consolation was the month it happened. By the following month, I was looking for help for my heart. So I had to enroll in a 13-week divorce care program. It was actually for people going through separation or divorce. It's not like they're telling you stuff that you want to hear, but they're telling you things to really help your heart. I had to go through. I'm telling you, I had to ask myself a lot of questions in the process with my own heart. What is happening to me? I was trying to find the road to healing. I was trying to deal with, search my own heart, if there's any anger, any facing my own loneliness, my own depression, and all of those things. And I was just thinking of a new commitment, new relationships in terms of the people that I am meeting. And then there's a financial side, there's a side of children, there's a side of you getting single again and all of that. You have to think about forgiveness. You have to think about how you work with this person too, because you all have kids together. So I had to go through, those things step by step, because I was determined. I could not, for at least for the sake of my children, I could not allow myself to get into a place of depression, because I've heard several stories here in the US of men who've been so knocked down by a divorce or by an adulterous scandal to the point where they could not focus on their job, and then they end up getting fired. So they lost they lost their kids, they lost their spouse, then they lost their job, and then they were just miserable. And so I could not really allow myself. So I had to really go through that, I had to go through a whole forgiveness thing. Several times I had to write notes. It's like writing notes to her, but I'll burn it just to let it go. And things like that. When people hear forgiveness, they think it's like, oh no, you're just coming back. No, forgiveness is not minimizing the hurt of the offense. It's not trying to go back to trust. You must not reconcile. It's not like you've forgotten the things. And it was over and over. The forgiveness was not like a one-time thing. Because sometimes some things just hit you, and you have to be strong. Otherwise, you will start, before you know, see, your mind has taken you that if this thing did not happen financially, I could have, would have, should have. Could have, would have, and should have never helped anyone. I would have been here. So it was just at those different levels. It took some time. Some of the relationships, I just had to give it time. Some of the relationships, I chose with tears to abandon them for years. And I chose to go back to some of them because I heard what they were saying, and I chose to shut the door from that because they were not going to help. It was going to destroy our friendship. And I went back, I did not go back to go tell my own side of the story, no, but to just continue the friendship. It is okay, we can disagree on matters of this or matters of that. And then for some of them, I just abandoned because it even so happened that one of the people who was even messing with my with my
ex-wife.
my then wife was one of my own close friends.
Oh
Each
my
had a similar
goodness.
issue and a similar background. So I had to really just choose not to make it about a person, but about really my own heart, because I just didn't want to get crazy.
Yeah.
And yes,
Oh my goodness.
depression. Yeah.
Whoa, that's so much that you went through, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, like you said, I mean, I strongly believe that sometimes when people do the worst to us, we forgive not because of that.
Yes.
Like unforgiveness is like prison. It's like a jail cell. Like as long
Yes.
as you stay in unforgiveness, you stay within the boundaries of that jail cell. The only way that you can free yourself from that bondage is if you forgive that person. So most of the times forgiveness is for you and not even for the other person. Is to
Yeah.
free yourself from that situation or that predicament in order for you to move on, So a lot of people have to really understand that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It's actually doing
Yes.
more for yourself than you could ever imagine, and releasing
Yeah.
yourself of all the pain, by forgiveness. Now,
Yes.
it's a lot of things that you said. I'm learning about them. They now seem more real in terms of how men could equally be treated, and that's why I really want men to step up and speak, because women have spoken for so long. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I was always under the impression that it's the women who were not being listened. It's
Yeah.
the women who, everybody would be like, because I have personally experienced some of my older female friends who have gone through divorce, who have gone through extremely unfair situations, especially in the church. And it tends to be the
Yes.
church people, the pastors, who will make you to ask for forgiveness for what the other person has done. Like
Yes.
that is utterly ridiculous,
Mm.
and that's very rampant in the African churches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that should not be normal. That we have to really, really speak against that, strongly speak against that. And I mean, I did not know that men are not being listened to in this situation as much as women. Now,
Yeah.
I feel like what is common in our African community is that we don't really like change. We don't like when the story is different. We always want the story or to fit the rhetoric, right? So when
Yeah.
things are changing, like when the story seems unusual, we either say it's a lie or we just don't want to even listen to the person. We could say the
Yeah.
person is complaining, because from what you spoke about, there are three things that were very unusual in a typical society. The man being abused, that's number one, right?
Yes.
It's very unusual to hear that, oh, this man was abused to the point of almost being killed. And then the
Yeah.
second one is the man having custody of kids. The
Yeah.
African community will look at the man as the wicked one. Like, normally kids are supposed to be with their mothers, right? And then the third one is like, the woman who's being adulterous and the man is not doing anything. Like your
Yeah.
friends could probably be laughing at you, like, you let a woman do that to you? Like you should be the one, like doing that and stuff like that. So we are so accustomed to a certain way of things or normal things that happen normally in our community that it's hard for us to really believe
Yes.
when the story goes the other way. And that is what I would call on our African community to change, because that is utterly dangerous. From everything that you went through and how you felt, I mean, it takes a strong person, because any other person who was mentally drained, physically abused, emotionally drained, like you could easily fall into a deep depression and probably even be suicidal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But thankfully, you're here today. You stood the test of time. But then again, the
Yes.
same people that you thought were supposed to be for you were actually against you. They turned their back. In our African community, we always want people to listen to us, but we don't want to listen to other people.
Yeah.
You're the one with the problem and you come to me to confide in me. First of all, I don't even appreciate the fact that you are being vulnerable. That's like a
Yeah.
vulnerable state that you're in. I just take what you tell me without really having that empathy. And I'm more interested in you listening to what I have to say. And then when you're having a hard time listening to it because your emotions are flying all over the place and you think that I don't understand you, I get offended that you're
Yeah.
disrespecting me.
Very true.
That you're disrespecting me. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like,
Yes.
at the end of the day, we have to know that it's about the victim. It's not about us. If someone comes to you to confide in you and for you to maybe give them advice, which I don't even think that it's right for us to give anybody advice if we're not a professional. Because we're giving advice, it's probably going to be biased, or it's probably going to be from our perspective, but you have to really experience that ordeal in order for you to appreciate what you've gone through to even be able to give advice. So sometimes people just want to be heard, like the victims just want to be heard, and you can console them or you can recommend help. But I think we should refrain from giving advice if we're not professionals as well, and we should also try to have that empathy. Empathy goes a very long way. You may not have a lot to say, you may not have a lot to do, but if you try to have empathy towards people's situations, it definitely goes a long way. I mean, empathy actually is a silent act of just, listening and making the other person feel like they're understood and they're listened to. Sometimes that's what people just want, especially when you're in a situation that you don't even know what to do about, and that nobody else can even help you out of that situation. Sometimes you just want people to listen to you. So there's so much to unpack from here. And I really urge everyone to really carefully listen to this episode and try to get as many lessons. Try to look at your own life. Look at your relationships with your friends. Are you checking on them? Are you listening? You want to be heard, but are you listening? We have to always make sure that, we can be there for the people who we love and who love us. And we should also take care of ourselves. That's most important. And I'm very glad that you, at the end of the day, decided to fight for yourself, because nobody will fight for you. You sought the help, went after rebuilding yourself. I mean, it's amazing, because nothing has changed between when we have been talking the last couple of years and now, even though I did not really understand what you were going through. But I'm so glad that you did all of that to get yourself back, because it's very easy to lose yourself in this situation. Well, I mean, I'm just going to stop talking because I can keep going on and on, So the last question I have for you, like, what message do you have for men in a similar situation?
Number one, it's okay for men to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you need to cry, you cry.
Right.
And yes. And number two is that men too do go through abuse, maybe emotional, financial, physical, or you name it. It is okay to seek for the appropriate help. Do not wait until it's too late. And things like that. Number three, for men, is that, if we're in a relationship, we are in it. Let's be vocal, like the Bible says, being one another's keeper.
Yeah.
The moment we start giving room for they say that relationships naturally drift apart. The moment we start giving room to drift apart, you may think the person you are dealing with, but people change over time. Yeah. And it's really good to be in a place. Marriage, this is still for men, that marriage is sacred, but it's not a secret. It's sacred, SACRED. Yes. So it's okay to be in a healthy community where people can check on one another. There is no need to be putting this Facebook front or whatever, social media front of everything is okay when it's not. Get help sooner than later. Yeah. Put that pride down and then get to the bottom of things. Even if the bottom is something that is an uncomfortable discovery, it will be helpful to move on and to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. That was so powerful. I mean, you would think, and this is the listeners, you would think this is the end of it, but there is still so much more to be unpacked in another episode. And that then we will be touching on divorce, like the whole process, the experience and everything. So please stay tuned for that in the upcoming episodes. Now, I just want to thank you, Femi, for being this vulnerable. This has been such a very, if not probably one of the most powerful episodes I've had. This is such an eye-opener from a societal, hopefully, and a personal level. I have so much more appreciation for you than ever. I just cannot thank you enough for opening up. And I hope that you opening up will open up the door for other men to step up and talk about their story, because we need to hear more men speaking up. We need to normalize that men also have emotions. We need to normalize that men can cry. We need to normalize that men are also human, emotional humans, as women are, as much as women. We just need to normalize that men can be good fathers. Men can be good single fathers. We need to normalize the fact that men get emotionally abused, mentally abused, verbally abused, and physically abused as well. So I just want to thank you. And this is an urge to everyone out there from our community. Please just be nice to one another. Please, if you find yourself in a situation, be alert enough to walk away from it before it turns out to be tragic. And I'm very glad that you did not let that happen, because you're here to tell your story. But that may not have been the same situation in many other relationships. And I just want us to be more understanding of each other and welcoming of other perspectives, welcoming of other stories that may not sound usual, but receiving those stories without being judgmental, and knowing that this is people's reality, and this is what people go through that you may not even be aware of. So let's just check on our loved ones. Let's be there, show love, receive love, and I hope to see everyone on the next episode. Well, we're gonna talk later. Bye.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information, or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Farmbard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.